Probably as soon as I hit high school. I think a lot of other kids at that age group, I sort of fell into a bit of a peer pressure group, and a lot of guys were smoking pot and stuff on the field at school, and it was considered cool, I guess. I liked the effects it gave me, and I was only smoking, say, a tinny a week at that point, which was $20 worth a week in small doses, and I thought I wanted to get cooler, so I wanted to get into the sort of selling tinnies side of it. And at the age of 15, I got expelled from high school for selling tinnies at a high school social. But funny, at the time of 15, I actually still thought I was cool. So I continued to sell tinnies and smoke weed and skateboard around with a whole bunch of bums. And Mum said, you need to get a job or get out of the house. I was just skateboarding every day and coming home late at night, high. So I popped my head over the fence and ended up getting a hammer hand job and making cups of teas and stuff. I didn't have to alter my pot using at all because it wasn't really frowned upon too much. But I got introduced to alcohol in quite a fast, big, heavy way. There were roosh outs. Someone was buying a box of beer every night of the week. I think I got my first DIC at 17, driving home from work, absolutely wrecked, stoned, and lost my licence for 6 months, being in that sort of a popular group. Well, there were different sorts of popular groups, I guess, but I think that one had the most appealing status for me, a bit of a badass sort of thing. You could have been one of the surfy sort of rugged types, but no, surfboards cost too much. And then as far as alcohol on the job sites, these men were all older than me, by at least 5 years, because I was so young. So I guess I thought that was, to be a man, you've got to be able to drink like they are drinking. So I tried to keep up, and I got wrecked day after day, night after night with these guys, and vomiting on myself in my car. One stage I woke up in the morning, my car wasn't in the driveway, and I thought, oh, I've parked it around the corner to hide it so Mum doesn't know I drank and drove. But no, it turned out I left the keys in it and left the windows down and left it on the side of the road outside my house, and someone decided to take it. Well, I pretty much gifted it. But I was walking around the block looking for it, thinking I'd parked it somewhere. No recollection of it whatsoever. I pretty much coasted like that for the next 3 years. I was getting a DIC every year. Every disqualification was increasing in loss of licence. Like I was up to 12 months one day by the time I was 22, I think. Having to reset licences annually to get my licence back. About the age of 18 to 20 as well, I got introduced to sort of harder drugs, speed and ecstasy, acid and methamphetamine. The hallucinogenics were very appealing to me. I like the buzz. I'd sit there and just look at the wallpaper changing and all that, and that was all pretty cool. Somewhere I got lost in the sort of world of it all, and drugs became more important than my career, my partner. I live for the weekend. I worked to get money so I could get alcohol, get drugs. When Monday rolled back around, it was a drag, but you had to do it to get the money at the end of the week to do it. I thought I'd grow out of it at some point. There were people around me the same age as me doing the same thing, and you never really saw how bad the flip side of any of that was, because you only ever saw your mates when you were drinking or when you were using. You didn't see them when they were hungover or when they were coming down, or you just saw them when it was happy. So yeah. And for me, when I was hungover or coming down at home and Mum would be on my back or my partner would be on my back, I blame them, because I was having a good time last night and now I've woken up and you're giving me a hard time, Like I heard once, if I'm using, then I'm the victim. And I guess I very much felt that way. Why is everyone picking on me, sort of thing? Just let me do my thing. Mum tried to get me to do a few CADS courses for my drinking, because I'd been hospitalised a few times for kidneys and blood in the urine and things like that. And I think she tried to sell it to me that it was the alcohol, but I'm still not. I think the kidneys is, I'm not sure. I think she was trying to give me a bit of a scare. It didn't really work too well. 2006, I had my first child. That to me was a turning point. I thought, all right, it's time to grow up. So I put a lot of the harder drugs sort of behind me. I still smoked my pot every day. At this point, I was smoking a tinny a day at least. That was smoking on the way to work, 10 o'clock morning smoko, 1 o'clock lunchtime, on the way home, at home, and just before I went to bed. Tried to leave the drinking just for Thursdays and the weekends. Didn't really work out alright because I still got another DIC in 2008, and this time I got 6 months home D. I felt stupid. I felt like I'd let my kids down. At the same time, my kids sort of saved me in one respect because me and my partner had split up. It was getting harder and harder to steal over and over and get rid of it. And so I resorted to drugs like GBH and Mills just to sort of dull my emotion or get me off, I guess. It was Christmas 2013. I was high as a kite driving out Glenbrook Way's Cracker, and I milled myself out behind the wheel, and I woke up in a paddock with paramedics and police officers, and I came to and I stood up and stumbled around like a drunk person, but it doesn't come up on your breath with a breathalyzer, and so they're looking at me thinking, geez, he's got to be drunk, and came up with a 0 breath test, But they impounded my car and dropped me off at home, and this is 5 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. And I guess I thought that I dodged a bullet because it's a 100k zone, so I would have been going somewhere in the vicinity of 80 and 100 plus, and just blacked out behind the wheel. And at the time I was just angry at the police because I wanted to make sure I got home before 6:30 when my kids wake up for Christmas morning. So again, it was their fault for me being in a paddock, I guess. I got through Christmas Day, and I had a really hard think about my future at that point. I rang up my old boss and asked if he'd take me back. This is 2014, January, February. He said, yeah, as long as you're clean. I said, yeah, no, I'm sorting my shit out now. I've had enough. So he came round to my house and had a sit down with me and my mum. I got through Christmas all right, and New Year's I kept drinking, I kept smoking pot. I thought A-class drugs were my problem. I loved my pot and I loved my alcohol. There was no way I was going to give that up. But I told my boss and I told my parents I'd clean up the A-class drugs and get myself back to work. So he took me back. I don't think there was a week there where I didn't actually not use. I tried very hard not to show it. It's pretty hard to work 3 days in a row without any sleep. So I was falling asleep in my car at lunchtime and nodding off in bad motorway traffic sometimes, and car toots behind me. Mum had a rule with my boss that my wages had to go into her bank account. This was a way of limiting my funds and access. I somehow managed to get at least $500 a week out of my wages off Mum, saying I needed a rego, I needed 2 new tyres, I'm stuck on the side of the road with a flatty, none of which was true. And she would transfer the money through my bank account, and I was still able to manage to get some drugs. 2-3 months into this, I couldn't live the lie. Work was getting in the way of my using, I guess. So I quit again and went back to crime. This time I was upping the ante a little bit and stealing credit cards and driver's licenses to order things online and on salad or smoke it. I think from the time I started work to this time. I really did want to get off the drugs. I was over it. I hated it, but I couldn't stop by myself. I think a week would have been the most I ever got up by myself. I wanted to be a better father for my kids. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think I just woke up one morning, really. I'd had many rock bottoms. I just wanted something better. I wanted something different. Mum had dragged me to higher ground before, CADs before, and I think, I don't think that's the answer. Like, it worked for me, this program, and coming to Capri because I wanted to get clean. I couldn't do it by myself, which is where I needed Capri. But because I wanted it, I think it worked. Like, if I'd come to keep Mum happy or to keep my boss happy, I don't think I'd be clean today. I really believe that, the individual has to want it and really want it for themselves and, or for their children, husbands, wives, for it to work. Because when you've lost everything else, my kids they're still there. I can lose my jobs, I can lose my material things, respect of my peers, but my kids are still sitting there looking up and waiting for me to step up. There's nowhere for them to go, but I want my mum to be a grandmother to my kids, not a mother. I want her to enjoy them as grandchildren. And a few of my mates that I was using within my sort of late teens, they did grow out of it, and they were starting to buy houses and travelling overseas, and I was jealous of that. I'm still stuck in South Auckland, still hustling, and so when I got in those doors at Capri, given I needed a few days R&R first, but I was very prepared to listen in those rooms. I used the journal. I wrote stuff down that I didn't know. The neurobiology classes especially, like the chemical balance, the dopamine levels. Because at this point, when I came through those doors, I still wanted to keep smoking pot and drinking alcohol. I just wanted to give up the meth because as far as I was concerned, the meth was my problem that was causing all this grief in my life. But I learned so much that I decided it's all got to go. Like, I'm not going to have a joint, have 5 beers and think, oh yeah, one puff's going to be all right. So I'm now 6 months, 23 days, complete sobriety, and the way in which my life has improved is massive. I don't live week to week now. I talk to my mum about everyday things, like we don't argue, we don't yell. She's not on my back about anything. She doesn't need to be. I go to the park with my kids, and I don't know who has more fun, them or me, but I used to just sit in my car and kick them out of the car and go to the park, and I'd be texting on my phone, trying to organise a deal. Whereas now I'm at the park, even if I'm just sitting on the park bench watching them, it's like watching them through different eyes, not the eyes I had before. And just watching them play together, really. Like, that used to irritate me before, I think. Like, the noise, I don't know, especially if I was tired. One of the things I was probably most terrified about coming into Capri was I knew that association was a big thing. My phone was just full of dealers, addicts, middlemen, and some of which were friends of mine for 15 years, we grew up using. And I thought I was going to come out the other end of Capri with no friends and live a sort of a lonely sort of life until I made new friends. But I made a lot of friends in Capri. Capri also introduced me to NA. I'd heard of AA before coming into Capri, but I'd actually never heard of all the GAs, NAs, EWs. I would never have thought myself walking into one of those rooms before Capri. I've seen them on TV, I guess. You know, I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic. Always sort of laughed at the idea and mocked the idea even, I think. But going through some of those Monday nights to the Albany meeting and the High Street meeting and listening to people with some clean time up, and it just was like, bang, yeah, I feel exactly like that. And that 6 years clean, 18 years clean. And I guess it's the whole one addict helping another addict sort of lessens the burden, I guess, of, you know, knowing you're not alone is a big thing for me. Sharing and just taking little bits of advice or little bits of good out of the whole in the sum, as Guy likes to put it. But the real deal breaker, I think, was my emotions. I didn't know how to deal with them. Like, I could deal with the angry side of everything, like the fact that my brother drowned, and I had a lot of resentment to the army for their incompetency. And I could talk about how he died and you know, how they stuffed up. But if I talked about growing up with my brother and the fun things we did and what he was like as a person, you know, I'd get the frog in my throat, and I couldn't talk about him in that way because I'd want to cry, so I didn't. And Jeanette got me to write a letter to my brother with my right hand and reply as if I was my brother with my left hand, and something to do with using different parts of your brain and stuff. Took me a few days to do it. I found it rather hard, and by the end of it, I don't even know if anyone else could read it but me because of the water drops all over it, and it smudged a lot of the pen. But it felt like a dam had broken, and everything was flowing to parts of me that it should flow. I think I learned to walk with the fact that I'd lost my brother instead of trying to work against it, or just acceptance, I think. The serenity prayer, you know, you look at that prayer when you first walk in and it doesn't have that much significance, but when you leave, it's everything, for me anyway. You know, the serenity, the courage and the wisdom, those three things can help me get through my day, you know, whether it's a work problem, a life problem, traffic, you know, different parts of that prayer can help any situation that I will face on a daily basis. What would I want to tell people that were thinking about coming to treatment? Do it. I mean, you've lost everything else already. What have you got to lose by ringing the number and finding out? If you want your life back, you know, if you want your self-worth back, if you want people to respect you again, if you're not being respected at the moment, you know, your health, if you want your health back, relationships. I'm in a clean and sober relationship now, and it's the first relationship I've been in ever that wasn't centered around drugs, sex, or alcohol. And it's really cool, you know, we do cool stuff together. You know, we talk about normal, everyday things and activities. You know, arguments aren't arguments like they used to be. Like, to me, an argument was pots and pans flying. It's so much easier to deal with anything, whether it's good or bad, having your sanity. And I think that's what I've regained, is my sanity more than, and my self-respect, self-worth. But yeah, if you're suffering because of your addiction, there's only one real answer, and that's confront it, give it a go, and like I said, you've got nothing to lose.
Everything to gain.
Everything to gain.